It's time for dinner.
Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong.
From the creative mind of Scott Bertelson, after 4 decades of teaching our impressionable youth,
The dinner bell.
you are invited to enjoy conversational morsels for the mind at Mr. B's dinner party.
Yeah, dinner.
Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. Who is back in the podcast chair? Well, it's Mr. B, and it's time for Mr. B's dinner party. Yes, it is. And this is my first episode of my second season. My goodness, I can't believe that a full year has disappeared, and you are still listening to me. How desperate you must be for entertainment. But anyway, I'm so grateful to everybody throughout the world that listens to me and takes time out of your day or just incorporates it into your day. And I'm so glad to start my second season. And I'm so glad that I've been renewed. And who made that decision? I guess I did. I guess I could walk away at any time, but I don't feel that. So I love spending time with you and hearing from you and hoping that I can bring some joy into your life and also bring some spiritual guidance at times. So anyway, let's belly up to the table and let's have another wonderful, wonderful yum, yum, yum meal at Mr. B's dinner party.
For the next course, come one, come all. Nothing spoiled here. From comfort classics to what's hot now. Film reviews from Mr. B's Rewatchables.
In the 80s, I know I go back to the 80s a lot, my happy friends, and the 90s for TV shows and movies. And yes, there are TV shows and movies today that I watch and I enjoy, and I'm going to be talking about some of those today. But it just struck me a couple days ago that I haven't talked about one of the best TV sitcoms, I think, of all time, next to All in the Family and the Mary Tyler Moore Show. And that would be Murphy Brown. Yes, Murphy Brown. Does anybody remember Murphy Brown? Candice Bergen, the wonderful, still alive, still acting Candice Bergen, who played Murphy Brown. This was an American TV sitcom that premiered in 1988. Where were you in 1988? And it starred Candice Bergen as Murphy Brown, this very famous investigative journalist and news anchor for a fictional show called FYI. And it ran from 98. It ran until 1998 after airing a total of 247 episodes over 10 seasons. 10 seasons, folks. Oh, yes. You can probably find this on, as I've said before, on a streaming service, or you could buy the box set, or I've tried to find the whole 10 seasons for purchase, and I have not been able to find that. So maybe I'm just looking in the wrong place, and if you know if I can find it anywhere, let me know. I used to watch it on some comedy basic cable show, and now it's not on anymore, but it'll probably come back. Interesting to know that there was a reboot of this show. You know, we've had reboots of classic 80s and 90s shows. That CBS ordered a 13-episode revival of Murphy Brown, which premiered in 2018, and it was canceled in 2019. It didn't last. And unfortunately, even though I was highly, highly excited about the reboot, it just didn't have this same comedic flair as the original. So, what is the story of Murphy Brown, and why should you take the time to watch this? I think it has some of the best writing ever in a TV series. Murphy Brown played a recovering alcoholic who returns to her fictional magazine, FYI, after she'd been at the Betty Ford Clinic Residential Treatment Center. She's over 40. Candice Bergen has, up to this point, had a wonderful career in film. And she's very, very, this is what I thoroughly enjoyed about the show, very sharp-tongued, really hard as nails. She shattered glass ceilings. I mean, she would do things as an investigative journalist that nobody's ever done before. She is portrayed as one of the hardest-hitting media personalities. Now, she had such a wonderful ensemble cast. for this show. You had the veteran anchor. His name was Jim Dial, and who calls Murphy Slugger.
I've never known you to shy away from risk before, Slugger.
And he's constantly reminiscing about the days of Murrow and Cronkite. He's completely opposite of Murphy Brown. And then Murphy's best friend is Frank Fontana. And he always calls her Murph. And he is known on the show as a so-called daredevil reporter, that he'll do anything, he'll risk life and limb to do any kind of investigation.
They're using all their own people as waiters and bartenders. The only people they won't know are the hookers.
So what we need then is a reporter who's willing to go undercover as a hooker.
I could do it, Miles. I could. It would be tricky, but it would be one of the high points of my career.
Give it up, Frank. You forget one leg wax, the whole thing's blown. No.
And they're always making fun of Frank because of his toupee, which they insist he wears on the show, but he doesn't really like it. Then you also have Miles Silverberg.
Just wanted to come up and introduce myself. Miles Silverberg.
Hello. Did you want an autograph?
Autograph? Autograph, no. I'm Miles Silverberg,
Right, Silverberg Miles, you said that.
the new executive producer of FYI.
Excuse me?
I said, I'm the new executive producer.
Wait. They replaced Arvin with you? You're Miles Silverberg?
Yes, Miles Silverberg. And let me just say what a big fan I am.
You know who the Shirelles are.
Miles. Many of these people came back for the reboot, which lasted for a year and then went down the toilet. Anyway, he plays a Harvard graduate, overachiever, the new executive producer, and he and Murphy butt heads many times. He's very naive, neurotic. Murphy takes advantage of him all the time. At the end of the 8th season, he disappeared and was replaced by the veteran actress Lily Tomlin. And that was quite funny, too. The other new kid on the block, so to speak, was Corky Sherwood. Corky, who replaced Murphy during her visit to rehab. She was a former Miss America from Louisiana, and many people on the show considered her very, very non-professional.
The whole idea is offensive and ridiculous. Nobody's going to be interested in a 40-year-old hooker.
She would do very lighthearted segments as opposed to the hard-hitting journalism that Murphy would do. But they did get along quite well as time went on. And all of these characters throughout the many years of the show on CBS went through lots of trials and tribulations. You also had this great guy known as Phil. And Phil was famous for the bar that they hung out at called Phil's. It was across the street from their office in Washington, D.C., and he was portrayed as a Washington, I guess I would call, institution. He knew everything that was going on in Washington, being a bartender, and so they would go in there and find out what's going on with Phil. And the standing joke was also, if you watch the early episodes, that if somebody would come in during the day, casting light from the doorway into the murky bar, everybody would say, "Close the door." I don't know. Is that funny? I don't know. Now, part of the joy of the show is that Murphy was an unmarried woman and very independent, and she had this house painter called Eldon, who was brought in to paint her house.
I just finished your kitchen ceiling. Come see if you like it. Come on.
It's a mural.
Scenes from the Industrial Revolution. I took a chance.
I like it.
Then I must continue. I was just about to start a cotton gin.
And was employed with her for 6 years. She'd come home from work and he was painting this room. And then the next episode, he was painting this room. And then when she became pregnant, which was a huge, huge controversial topic in the 80s, a single woman being pregnant, he became the nanny to her. And so he would paint these murals throughout the house. Anyway, so funny, so very, very funny. Some of the joys of this show would be, if you watch it, is normally the standing joke was that Murphy had a recurring rotating list of secretaries because nobody could take her. They usually were employed for one day, maybe half a day, maybe for an hour, and then they were fired. And so most of the time, Murphy did not have a secretary or administrative assistant. And I would tune in every week to see who they came up with for a secretary. And if you ever want to, you can go to YouTube and you can go to the Murphy Brown. You can see scenes from Murphy Brown. And the one YouTube that shows all the secretaries that she went through. And they range from deranged people, convicts, monkeys, dancers, singers, completely inept people. It's just so uproariously funny. So a lot of it took place in the office at FYI, where they would talk about the show and talk about their guests. And so many times guests would be on the air, and Murphy was well known for going in for the kill with her guests, very, very direct. And you could watch this in her her interaction with the people. Then the other part of the show largely dealt with her home life and her dating life and how men found her many times standoffish. She was too strong for them, and so her relationships didn't really work. And then all of a sudden, she becomes pregnant, and she has to make the choice: is she going to keep the baby, or is she not going to keep the baby? And which is a central part of the TV show. And she does decide to become a single mother. And so the duration of the rest of the show deals with her trying to handle being a single mother and then working at the same time.
While we're on the subject of mothers, I better warn you up front. I'm not going to be like other mothers. I don't cook or sew or make stuffed animals talk in funny voices. But I promise that you won't have to wait until after the cake to open your birthday presents. I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. I'll try to keep it under 750.
And if anybody remembers the 80s, there was quite big news on the political front from people saying that this is a really bad role model to put on television, that you have this woman who is choosing to raise a child alone.
It doesn't help matters when primetime TV has Murphy Brown, a character who supposedly epitomizes today's intelligent, highly paid professional woman, mocking the importance of fathers by bearing a child alone and calling it just another lifestyle choice.
So that was really incorporated into the series, and Murphy Brown made it very clear that in her own very bombastic style, may I say, very biting humor. She was the queen of sarcasm, that she was not going to be told whether or not she could raise a child or not. And she seemed to have done it successfully on the show.
In a recent speech, Vice President Quayle used me as an example of the poverty of values in this country and implied that I was a poor role model for our nation's youth. While some might argue that attacking my status as a single mother was nothing more than a cynical bit of election year posturing, I prefer to give the Vice President the benefit of the doubt. These are difficult times for our country, and in searching for the causes of our social ills, we could choose to blame the media, or the Congress, or an administration that's been in power for 12 years, or we could blame me.
And then she goes through a phase of battling cancer, and she comes out battling that and overcoming it.
But I guess when you have cancer, you do a lot of things alone.
And so that's a really darker part of the TV series. So even though there's lots of humor and very intelligent humor on the show, there's also some dark moments. And that is what makes the show, to me, rewatchable forever. If you bypass the hairstyles and the dress and the other 80s-like facets of the show, I think you will be thoroughly entertained by this great comedic figure. I mean, I put Candice Bergen in the same realm as Lucille Ball, as Mary Tyler Moore, the queens of television, of deciding to undertake this show and to portray this really gifted, intellectually gifted person who would not settle for second best. And her addiction to alcohol is referred to many times throughout the show, and how she was also addicted to cigarettes. And so when she comes back from the Betty Ford Center, she's given up both. And so she's battling sometimes those demons of how she wants to go back and have a drink or have a cigarette. And so that's dealt with on the show too. So being an addict of food, I can relate to that. And so that was very well addressed. So, folks, you've got to see Murphy Brown. Half an hour of your life that you will never, ever say that was wasted. She becomes something that you have to watch for the comedic flair, the dialogue, the situations, the ensemble cast is brilliant, and it is such a great joy to watch the life of Murphy Brown. So please take some time to find Murphy Brown. Don't just say, oh my gosh, it was on in the 80s. That's really old. It can't be any good. Let me tell you, it's beyond good. It's brilliant. Murphy Brown. Murphy Brown. Now, my happy friends, I have recently had the opportunity to leave the United States and go on a wonderful trip with friends and students to Europe, where I went to Norway, Denmark, and Sweden, which I'll be talking about. But on the way for our long flight, and I do mean long, was it 9 hours? Was it 10 hours? Was it 3 days? Who knows? Over the ocean to Europe, I had the opportunity to see 3 movies that I'd like to talk about a little bit and tell you whether or not I think you should see them. And again, what I give you for information, you can decide if you think it's valid to rent these or watch them on a streaming service or a cable station, or I think these are all now post theater. So you decide. Okay. So here we go. The first one is a film that came out last Christmas called The Iron Claw.
Ever since I was a child, people said my family was cursed. Mom tried to protect us with God. Pop tried to protect us with wrestling. He said if we were the toughest, the strongest. Nothing could ever hurt us. I believed him. We all did.
And I took the time to watch this, and it's a 2023 biographical sports drama. And it's about a true life story about the Von Erichs, if I'm saying that correctly, a family of professional wrestlers who are supposedly cursed by tragedy. And the film depicts the struggles of the wrestling company owner, Fritz Von Erich, and his sons to achieve success that their father groomed them for from 1979 to the early 1990s. The film has Zac Efron as Kevin Von Erich, one of the sons. And by the way, I think this is his best role ever, Zac Efron. I know that he's played many supporting roles and what I would consider fluffy roles, but I thought his acting was very, very good in this film. Also, Jeremy Allen White plays one of the sons. He is the main character on the FX show Hulu, The Bear. Harris Dickinson played one. And it was called the Iron Claw because that was an in-ring signature move of the Von Erichs that they would use on people. And so, anyway, this starts in 1979, where the world-class championship wrestling company is owned by professional wrestler Fritz Von Erich, who has once dreamed of winning the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship. He's got 5 sons with his wife. From oldest to youngest, he's got Jack Jr., Kevin and David, Carrie, and Mike. And they all want to go in different directions in their life. Kevin, as portrayed by Zac Efron, starts a relationship with a woman named Pam and tells her about the Von Erich curse that killed Jack Jr. as a child. Supposedly brought on by Fritz changing his last name from Addison to his mother's, whose family had suffered constant tragedy. So Kevin wins a non-title match against the NWA World Heavyweight Champion Harley Race. Fritz is very disappointed that Kevin took a long time to get up after taking a drop on the concrete. But the 1980 Summer Olympics boycott dashes Carrie's hopes of competition, and he moves back where Fritz asked him to become a wrestler. Well, then by 1983, Kevin, Carrie, and David, all brothers, defeat the fabulous Freebirds, and Fritz volunteers David over Kevin to fight current NWA World Heavyweight Champion Ric Flair. Kevin and Pam get married, and a week later, David dies of a disease while touring in Japan. So the major theme of this film, without going into more detail about it, is that they really truly felt that they were cursed as a family and that all the brothers are going to be subjected to death sometime in their life, way before they should be taken, so to speak. Fearing the curse, Kevin has his newborn son, legally surnamed Addison. He doesn't even want him to have that name. So anyway, then we have Mike, who badly injures his shoulder during a match, one of the brothers, and goes into toxic shock coma. He emerges from the coma with brain damage, and he can no longer play the guitar. And then, unfortunately, he takes his own life. Carrie returns to wrestling with a new prosthetic foot. He lost his foot. And he focuses on trying to be successful in the ring. Carrie later tells Kevin to tell him that the curse's constant presence and his declining career have made him consider suicide. And so then he does take his own life. So there's another brother who is gone. And then what I thought was a beautiful part of the film was that there's a scene where when he dies, when Carrie dies, Kevin has a vision of his brothers in the afterlife. And they're all waiting for him to come to the other side. And they're welcoming him to do that. It's just really beautiful. So what ultimately happens is that Kevin Von Erich and his wife had more children, and they're still married. And they live with their children and grandchildren in Hawaii. And the Von Erichs were inducted into WWE Hall of Fame in 2009. So, why would you watch this film? It was a beautiful example of a father, a very dominating, pushy father who wanted his boys to be very, very good, exceptional at pro wrestling, and would not accept the fact that they seemed to be, unfortunately, dying one by one because of disease or suicide or whatever the case would be. And he would not let go of the dream that they would all be successful wrestlers. So to me, the theme of the film was that you have to accept reality for what it is and go with it and enjoy it, and don't put your dreams on somebody else. Live your own dream. Let the person next to you live his or her own dream. That's what I got out of it. And I also got out of it the brilliant story of the tragedy of this family, how this could be happening. And is there such a thing as a curse? Can you actually have a family cursed? I'm not saying I believe that. I'm not saying I don't believe it. It makes you really think about that. And the third reason I really recommend The Iron Claw is Zac Efron's performance. And it's really made me much more aware of his skill as an actor, and not just a pretty boy. He really, really, I think, had great acting chops in this film. The other movie that I watched while I was on my long flight and eating airplane food and trying to get comfortable in a chair that makes it virtually impossible to be comfortable was the movie Priscilla.
Hi. What's your name?
Priscilla Boyer.
You like Elvis Presley?
Of course. Who doesn't?
Now, I had talked about Priscilla on an earlier episode about one of the top films of 2023 that I thought it was. Had I seen it at that time? No. I was basing that on the reviews that I had read. But I did see it, and I did really very much enjoy it. Now, I am a huge fan of Elvis Presley. I am a huge fan of the movie Elvis that came out a couple years ago. I think the Adam Butler, I believe is his name, who portrayed Elvis, was brilliant in that role, absolutely brilliant. And it was a superb story of a man being abused and used by Colonel Parker for the means of Colonel Parker getting lots of money so that he can continue with his compulsion of gambling. That's the way that film seemed to be set up. With Priscilla, we see it from her viewpoint. That was Elvis's wife, from the moment that they met in Germany all the way to her walking out on him and why she walked out on him. It was a 2023 biodrama written, directed, and produced by Sofia Coppola. And she's the daughter, of course, of the great producer and director Francis Ford Coppola, who made, along with many others, the Godfather film, the Godfather series. It's It's based on the book Elvis and Me by Priscilla Presley. The film made $133 million and received overall very positive reviews. The gal who played Priscilla received Best Actress nomination at the Golden Globes. And Priscilla Presley was actually the executive producer of the show, of the movie. So, to give you a little viewpoint of what the story is, we have Priscilla, who lives with her parents in Germany. She meets Elvis at a party when he is stationed over there. And at the time, she is only 14 years old. And so he wants to go out with her. And so she has to get permission to actually get that done from her parents because of her age.
Just what is the intent here, Mr. Presley? You got women throwing themselves at you. Why my daughter?
Well, sir, I happen to be very fond of your daughter.
And it's most interesting to see how this very young girl is dating the king of rock and roll, much older than she was, and how he seemed to adore her and wanted her to be a part of his life, even though she was really a child. And so when he gets out of the military, he sends for her to come over to Graceland to live there in the house and to continue with her schooling. And she does that, and her parents agreed to that. And the film shows her growth as a person, how she is so madly in love with Elvis. And the film really gives the impression that Elvis maybe wasn't the best marital material.
Black hair and more eye makeup.
I don't know if I like it.
What do you mean you don't know if you like it?
He, according to the film, probably is cheating on her once they are married and once they have a child.
He's not like you imagine. You know, there's a lot of rumors about you.
Was there something you're hiding?
I don't have a goddamn thing to hide. I need a woman who understands that things like this might happen.
He has erratic behavior. He doesn't seem to be attracted to her as much as he used to be. He's very distant from her. It doesn't paint a really positive image of Elvis. And I just want you to know that going into the film. Yes, he's the king of rock and roll, and yes, he's probably one of the greatest performers of all time, in my estimation. But he definitely has some major, major flaws. And she wasn't ready for that. And so as you see her grow up, get married, have a child, try to support him, she just realizes that it's just not going to work. And she tells herself that it's better to leave when she can than to be stuck in a loveless relationship. And that's where the film ends. And then they became, or continued, I guess you could say, until his death, friends. They never reconciled. And Priscilla, I think, did have a number of affairs after that. And now she's just enjoying her life, I guess, which she has a right to. So anyway, Priscilla, if you want to know more of the backstory of Elvis Presley and what life was like at Graceland with young Elvis and Priscilla, then I would highly suggest this film. I think Sofia Coppola is a superb director and does a wonderful job, and it makes you feel empathy for the main character, Priscilla. And I think when they first divorced many, many years ago, there might have been many, many people who thought, why would she leave him? He's the greatest man of all time. I mean, the greatest entertainer. He must be a perfect human. And we don't see that in this film. Not at all. And we see more of maybe she had to do this for her own survival. So again, go to a streaming service, cable station, Priscilla. I think you would really like it. The third film that I watched on my long flight in between naps and eating and drinking coffee was something that I normally am not attracted to. This was a romantic thriller dark comedy. No, this is not my daily life. But with so many choices, I thought I'm going to take cinematic risk here. And I watched something called Love Lies Bleeding. Love Lies, Lies, Bleeding, which is a 2024 film. Written by Rose Glass, whoever that would be, and starring Kristen Stewart. Now, you might remember her from the Twilight films and lots of other movies. And then a list of characters of people I don't know, but it also has in it Ed Harris. And I'm a huge fan of Ed Harris, and he plays a very vile person in this film. And it takes place in 1989. And the film follows a lesbian relationship between a gym manager, who's part of a crime family, and a bodybuilder who gets wrapped up in organized crime. So it's not really a feel-good movie. I guess the reason I would recommend it, I'm not making light of it, I'm not. I thought it was good, was the relationship between the Kristen Stewart character and the bodybuilder, and Kristen Stewart and her criminal father, played by Ed Harris.
You talked to your dad recently?
Why?
Give us a call.
Call me when it's done.
What is this place? Huh? You don't understand. Get back in the car.
Takes place in a New Mexican town in 1989. A gym manager, as portrayed by Kristen Stewart, has a good relationship with her sister and has a good friend, Daisy. Well, one night when she's at the gym, she is approached by FBI agents, and they want information about her father. Now, she, at this point, has nothing to do with her father. She is very anti-father. But they want to know about his criminal ties. Well, then she meets Jackie, as portrayed by an actress known as Katie O'Brien, a bodybuilder staying in town while preparing for the competition in Las Vegas. Lou offers Jackie steroids to enhance her training. And then Jackie asks Lou if she can live with her temporarily. And they do, and they fall in love over the course of the following weeks. All while, of course, Jackie is using big doses of steroids during her training. And so, as the story goes on, they have a very volatile relationship. She becomes in contact with her father. She's covered up for her father, who's a drug lord, some of the crimes that he has committed and where he's put the bodies. And then her girlfriend, Jackie, commits a crime. And she has to try to dispose of the body. And that, of course, leads to more crimes and more crimes and more crimes. So it's a very intriguing story about how you can love somebody And you will go to any means to keep that love, even killing, and justify the killing because you love that person and would do anything for that person. And then we see the relationship between Kristen Stewart and Ed Harris escalate as he thinks she's going to turn him into the feds. And if she's going to do that, he's going to bring her down at the same time. So what happens is they take off. Both Lou and Jackie just take off. And when they take off, we don't really know where they're going to end up or what's going to happen. And I really like the ending of the film because it kept it very ambiguous as to whether or not they can outrun the police because they're criminals, both of them. Will they find happiness? Can you rely on happiness to keep you going when you have nothing, no money, nothing to back you up or anything to keep you going, and you've got all these crimes on your plate? So unique, different. If you're looking for humor, no. But to me, the big theme of the film was, how far will you go to protect someone that you love? What will you do? Would you even kill? And is that justified ever? You need to decide that for yourself, my happy friends, as you watch this film. Love Lies Bleeding. I will say, I thought Kristen Stewart was very good in this film. I'm not a huge fan of Kristen Stewart. I did like her in the film that she played Princess Diana. I thought she was very good in that. This, again, I thought she was extremely well cast in this film. So this is for adults. Don't let the kids sit in the room with you when you're watching this. So, Love Lies Bleeding. Take the time.
Sit still. I said, I can't. Something's tickling me. She thought I was crazy. She said, well, open your coat. I unbuttoned my coat and opened it up. There was a mouse.
Stories. Everybody has them. The stories of our parents, grandparents, and our friends remind us who they are.
That's kind of what I think it is, too, is memories. Growing up, my dad was an English teacher.
How they got here, and what they've learned on the way. What if you could collect as many of your loved ones' stories in a high-quality audio format to keep forever? What if you could share the sound of your loved one's voice, their laughter, and their thoughtful manner with your children, or when you are simply driving to work?
He spent literally 3 months in North Dakota freezing buckets of ice water to make this awesome ice fort that we never spent time in, but it was amazing for the moment it was done.
Well, you can with a Sunnyside of Life biography. Produced here at Sunnyside Farm Studios. I'll sit down with your loved one for 1, 2, or several sessions to record their stories.
I think my students are going to have good memories of me.
You'll receive the full raw recording, an edited selection arranged in audio chapters for easy reference, and produced segments you can use for family gatherings, special moments, or any time you just want to hear your loved one's voice.
And those are probably my most cherished things.
Share it with your family and make it a keepsake, because that's what stories are. Keepsakes of the time we had together.
Never forget that. I was petrified of mice after that forever.
Email your query for more information to Troy at sunnysidefarmstudios.com. The email is also in this show's notes. Let me record your loved one's story so you can share the sunny side of their life in their own words for years to come.
I actually do kind of remember that now.
Let's lend our ears to the wacky observations of the world, according to Scott. Mr. B's Wacky, 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 Wacky World.
Okay, guess what? It's time once again for Mr. B's Wacky, 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 Wacky World, subtitled Pet Peeves that I can't seem to avoid. Now, I have covered a plethora of pet peeves, my friends, over all of my podcasts. But I thought today, and I've alluded to some of these that I'm going to be talking about today, but I'm going to talk exclusively about travel pet peeves. With my recent trip to Europe, I found some pet peeves that I've experienced again when traveling and some new ones. So let's see if you can relate to any of these. Okay. All right, the first one would be airports that cancel flights. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Am I talking to anybody out there who has had a flight canceled or delayed? Oh, my gosh. You know, I've talked to you about going into an airport. It's like entering purgatory. But when we were flying back from Europe, we flew from Stockholm into Toronto, and there our flight was canceled. Yes, and I couldn't believe that I was actually hearing our leader say our flight has been canceled. The upside of this was that since it was the fault of the airline, something mechanical, they put us up for 2 nights at a hotel in Toronto and gave us meal vouchers. So that's the positive. But the negative was, of course, it delayed us getting back, which essentially was not that major of a deal. And it also made you realize that you are so vulnerable in an airport when it comes to flights. In a perfect world, your flight would leave at the time that it's supposed to and land at the time it's supposed to. But it does not always work that way. And so this is the first time something like this has ever happened to me. I guess I'm not immune from it. I just thought it happened to other people. Yeah. So anyway, that's a pet peeve. Can I do anything about it? Really not. Maybe I just need to not be in airports. Maybe I shouldn't fly. But I probably will because it gets me there faster. And who else would want to give up a cramped seat? So there you go. All right, another one would be lines at an airport. Now, just like an amusement park, they make it look like you're moving quickly, but instead you are just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. When we were in Toronto finally and we were leaving on a flight that was rescheduled, we were going to go through customs so then we could fly into the United States, that is into Minneapolis. And we went into the room and it was just massive people. And you thought, oh my gosh, we're never going to be able to get on the plane. We're not going to have enough time. We're going to be stranded here for the next 5 years trying to go through customs. Now, even though it does move relatively fast, because basically they just look at you, you look at your passport, ask you a few questions, maybe take your picture, you can get through that process rather quickly. But in the meantime, it is a sheer exercise in being patient. Patient. Because you go this direction, and then you go this direction, and then you go this direction, and then you go... It seems like for miles, when it really isn't, but it seems that way. And you've got to just enter the line of terror with a good attitude that you are going to get through this and you are going to get some spot on the plane. So that's my other pet peeve of why can't they hire more people to get you through customs? That's just me. Am I being selfish? Yeah, probably. Do I have a right to that? Yeah, probably. Oh, and the other thing. Okay, I've talked about TSA. It really depends, I found, that what airport you're at, that your bag will go through security okay, and the next time at one airport, and then you have the same contents. Nothing has changed. Nothing. And the next airport, the bag is pulled aside. And they go through it with a fine-tooth comb. Why is there a difference? I don't understand this. Are they different types of machines? Maybe so. Not being technologically advanced. Maybe that's the deal and I'm just not aware of it. But, for example, in one airport, I had a few ounces of shaving cream and then went through the machine. Everything was fine. The next airport, they pulled the bag aside and they said, you can't have this. Okay, take it. I don't care. It's shaving cream. But I don't see the difference. It's just a pet peeve of mine. And I know I've said this before too, but the pet peeve of I go through the scanner and I can tell you inevitably that when I walk out, they are going to frisk me. That's what I call it, frisk me. Humiliate me. Well, not purposely, but they do. Got out of the scanner and the guy says, now I need to, I can't remember the official word that he used, but he needs to touch me on my legs and, so to speak, areas that maybe I don't want him to. And he said, no, I can do it here or we can do it privately. I thought, what do I care? So he starts and I'm like, what's going on? Do I look like a terrorist? I don't know. What does a terrorist look like? Let's not get into that. But anyway, and nobody pays attention there, believe me. And again, then he gets said, okay, go on your merry way and you're fine. I mean, what is it that they saw that they thought I was hiding something? I just don't know. So I'm very scared to even get into a scanner because I just know I'm going to be pulled aside and all my friends are saying, here he goes again. So the last one I'm going to mention would have to be, and I probably mentioned this before, but airplane bathrooms. Oh my gosh. You can't turn around. You feel like you're in a coffin. You feel like the door is going to open at any time. When you flush the toilet, it is such a violent flush that it almost feels like it's going to pull you in with it. And I can't think of a worse way to go. So I really try to avoid bathrooms on airplanes if I can. It is so much safer to do so. I have to be in a dire situation before I'm going to use a bathroom on an airplane. So, no liquids for hours before I get on a plane. So anyway, I'm sure there are many more travel pet peeves, but those are the major ones I have today, and I don't see it changing really. And that's not going to keep me from an airport, unfortunately, even though I have to be medicated before I walk into the doors. But I probably will continue to use it as a means of travel because I do like to travel. So just be aware, my friends, when you're going into the airport, the terror that might be awaiting you.
Hello, friends and neighbors. This is Troy Thompson of the Sunnyside of Life. Let's spend this year together reading the Word of God. Just take 10 to 15 minutes a day to join with me in the Sunnyside of Life's Bible in a Year experience. It may be just what you need. Lord knows I do. Besides, it's free, it's fast, and it's good for your soul. And you can start anytime. It doesn't take much to get caught up and on pace with us each day. So, whether you've read the Bible entirely already or you're just looking for a way to get it done, take a few moments with me here and let the good book be the sunny side of your life each and every day. Let's have a seat round the proverbial table.
Would you like to say grace?
With a nod to our higher power and Mr. B's spiritual journey.
For my spiritual reflections, my happy friends, I'm going to talk a little bit about character defects. Now, when working on the 12 steps, when I went through that with my sponsor, being an overeater that I am today, I will be tomorrow, that will never change. I will always have this disease, but that doesn't mean that I need to act on it. And I only take 24 hours at a time to stay clean, stay abstinent, which leads to emotional health, spiritual health, physical health, so many ways that I can't even tell you how wonderful it is. One of the things I had to do is become aware of my character defects. Now, none of us are perfect. We never will be. We weren't meant to be. And you might say, why would a higher power make us filled with character defects? I like to think that we have many more positive traits than defects. But if we practice using a defect, we must be getting something out of it, huh? We must be using it for a purpose. Whether that is to fuel our addiction or fuel our disease, or just to berate ourselves and belittle ourselves, we must be finding a purpose for it. Some of my biggest character traits, as I may have alluded to before, would be control and jealousy. Control is something that I believe I learned in my home environment. I'm not blaming. I am not doing it. And I tried to, in my early life, control every aspect of life. My classes, my wife, my children, my friends. And you know what? I found that didn't really work because I was losing myself in the process. And I was falling deeper and deeper into my addiction. And so I asked my higher power, whom I call God, to relieve me of that character defect. And I don't believe that it miraculously disappears forever. When I want to take back my control, and that happens, believe me, it does, then my feelings for wanting to overeat kick in. So I know that I've got to give it over, and I've just got to say, God, today I'm going to do my part, and you are going to guide me, and I'm going to be happy today, but I'm not going to try to run somebody else's life or tell them that they are a worthless person or they are below me, because I do not believe that. And so with jealousy, I always felt like, or I told myself growing up, that everybody else has it better than I do. I was the oldest of 3 children, and my father, dead, love him, I still love him, treated me differently from the other 2. And I was jealous of that. And sometimes today I still feel that jealousy, even though he's been gone for years. And I've apologized to my sister and my brother for my attitude in the past, giving the impression that they had the perfect life and I didn't. There's no such thing as a perfect life. No, doesn't exist. And now I'm happy and content because I don't try to compare my life with other people. I know what makes me happy. I know what I have to do, relying on my higher power to stay happy. And so much of that has dissipated from my life. Do I still have moments? Yes, I do. I guess what I'm trying to say about character defects is we all have them. We all have a reason for them. We all decide if we're going to act upon them. We can decide to not do that on a daily basis. If I had to tell myself that I would never experience control again in the life that I still have left on this earth, that would never happen again, I can't say that. I can't. I can do it on a daily basis, though, which is what my program is, just for the next 24 hours. Some other not pet peeves, some other character start that again, Troy. Some of my other pet peeves, start that again, Troy. Some of my other noticeable character defects would be poor communication, being destructive, being egotistical, being fearful, being a glutton, gossip, hatred of self, impatience, indifference, irresponsibility, and laziness. Now, there are many more. Do I experience these on a daily basis? No. No, I do not. It's rare that I experience these really ever much anymore. But the kicker is that I can't take care of this on my own. I have to have my higher power remove these from me. I have to pray to my higher power, and I can do that anywhere at any time, and say, please alleviate me of this sense of isolation today or irresponsibility. And I'm not saying it's going to be something that happens magically, but if you truly want it, I truly believe your higher power will remove it from you, and things will get better. Things will get better. So don't beat yourself up that you have character defects. Join the club. Join the club. It's called the human race, my friends. And it's a great place to be. And so, be happy. Be yourself. Enjoy your life. Folks, that's going to wrap it up for Mr. B this time at the dinner party. I hope that you don't need any Alka-Seltzer from your overindulgence. I told you not to eat all of that dip. Oh my gosh, you people. You've got to settle down and try to eat more vegan. That's a whole nother episode. But anyway, I'm so glad I got to spend this time with you. And next time I'm going to talk more about my trip to Europe. And I know you're waiting with bated breath for that. So I'm going to do that. I'm also going to next time start a new section of my show called Poet's Corner. And I'm going to start with Robert Frost. And I'm going to read some of his poetry and talk about his poetry. And I'm hoping that we can develop a whole community of poet lovers out there, because you can find such joy in poetry. That gives you something to look forward to for our next episode. And so without further ado, I wish you the very best happiness, joy, and a love for yourself. Love yourself. Be your biggest advocate. You deserve it. Bye-bye.
Mr. B's Dinner Party is hosted by Scott Bertelson, edited and produced by Troy Thompson, recorded and distributed at Sunnyside Farm Studios. Music is provided by Soundstripe and platformed by Buzzsprout. Like our page on Facebook, Subscribe so you never miss an episode, and share with your friends. Listen and enjoy every other Wednesday conversational morsels for the mind on Mr. B's Dinner Party.